Yeah! Welcome back. We got the big ditty going tonight on Calling All Beings. How's it going, everybody? I'm your host, DJ. Welcome back to Calling All Beings. And we're about to get into it with two of the premier original gangsters from the IC tonight to educate, regulate, all truth dilate, right? Come on, Nathan. but before we get into any of that, let's introduce my amazing co-creators and collaborators here on CAB. The man you're seeing with the glasses, who somebody just said, you know, I mean, it's so good to see you. He's so adorable. But it's Money now. It's the co-conspirator and fun, interesting, and illuminating talk about the phenomenon, Money Nathan.
Hey, it's great to be here. Great to see all of you. Very excited to have this conversation this evening. Welcome everybody who's in the audience viewing the show. Let's get into it.
All right, man. But before we do that, we got the center, the keystone of the joint, the researcher, the one who gives us a little bit of legitimacy up in here, and that is a study of UAP, Debs.
Yes, I'm just glad that Jules is here to make sure that we're moderated in our discussion today.
We're appropriately well behaved.
Yeah, hell yeah. We need an adult in this room right here, because I'll tell you what, myself and our other co-hosts here, Leah Primetime, are definitely not the adults in this joint. What's up, Primetime?
Hi, DJ. Just another day in paradise.
And do you have like a box of wine somewhere, like where it's just got like an extra amount and you could just, you know, it's got a couple liters worth of that? Do you have a box of wine anywhere within reach?
Yeah, dude. About 6 boxes of Franzi, and I just roll my chair over and stick my head under the spigot.
That's my homegirl right there. And
Yeah.
you usually are reading this young lady in the chat where she brings positivity everywhere she goes. But tonight, since we're not having a chat, guess what? She decided to jump in this joint. And that is our lovely chat host, the Jewel of the Nile. What's going on, homegirl?
Hey, darlings, I'm happy to be here, and do not make me time y'all out.
All right, man, I got you. All right, before we go any further, we're going to have a statement from our brother, Money Nathan. So go ahead and make yourself larger, Nathan, and then we'll bring in our guests of honor, who we're super excited to speak with this evening.
Awesome. All right. Well, I've never done an opening statement like this on our show before, but I'd like to welcome everyone to Calling All Beings. And for those of you who may not have watched our show before, we occasionally do what we affectionately call a fireside chat, which is just a cozy way of saying that we're hosting an open-ended round-robin type conversation where each panelist has an opportunity to introduce a topic of their choice. Regardless of the show or the guests, we endeavor to host discussions which are fun, serious, silly, and thought-provoking. CAB has never been a show about gotcha questions. We have disabled the live chat so that we can all focus on tonight's content and in fostering a meaningful dialogue. CAB is not monetized in any way, nor do we begrudge shows which are. No matter your perspective, we tend to believe that valuing the integrity and dignity of our fellow humans is more important than scoring points or clicks or likes. That said, we ask for your like if you are open to giving it and believe we have earned it. Now, there has been a great deal of talk lately about imminent disclosure and all that entails. It's fun to speculate on a subject which many of us spend a great deal of time and energy contemplating every day. Whether you're simply UFO curious, a believer, an experiencer, or an ardent skeptic, we should be able to agree that the conversation can be made better when we enter into good faith discussion and work together toward understanding. In short, if the conversation is worth having, it is worthy of our best efforts. Lastly, I personally find it very important to make space for those who have the courage to share their phenomenal experiences as well as their interpretation of them. Interpretation is a funny thing, not a static picture, but rather an evolving process of meaning making shaped by every moment, interaction, and new experience. At CAB, we welcome the sharing of these experiences and are eager to listen. However, as a larger community, we often aren't particularly great at listening, but we believe that listening is an exercise in honoring our fellow human. It is an act of compassion, a sacrament of presence. So this evening, that's what we'll do, as we welcome both John and Anjali to share a conversation with all of us. We are so grateful for their time and willingness to speak. We are also deeply grateful for those of you who have stopped by to watch and listen in, even if only for a little while. Let the fireside chat begin.
Damn, I love this guy right here, and I love being
Beautiful.
part of this show. So we're honored to have these two guests on tonight. Our first guest, our guest of honor, is a veteran of the USAF, a former analyst at the DIA, a respected member of the IC, an experiencer of the phenomenon, a citizen of the world, and a proliferator of love and light everywhere she goes. Party people, put them together for my home girl, Anjali Schultz. Woo! Can I get an amen?
Amen.
For Anjali.
Amen.
Our other special guest is a veteran of the United States Navy, a retired CIA officer, a well-read and learned analyst, also a citizen of the world who has helped contextualize the operations of the U.S. government for civilians who we toil away on Twitter, and people just don't understand what they're listening to and how to interpret what the government is doing, is saying, and is not saying. This gentleman is also he's a blessing to the community, like Anjali, and also a citizen of the world. So put him together for my man, Mr. John Ramirez.
Cheers.
Amen. Yes. Ha! So
I'm doing it too. You can't see, but I'm doing it.
So the way I know you're putting them together, Debs, we love you. So what we wanted, the way we wanted to start this off tonight is there's interesting things that John and Anjali had to discuss, and I'm gonna get out the way so you guys can and people are like, yeah, damn, I'm glad, man. Get yourself out in the way and let these two talk. So without further ado, Mr. Ramirez, please take it away, sir.
Okay, yeah. I wanted to be with Anjali because we've had private conversations before, and we've texted each other, emailed each other, but we've never been on the record together on any kind of podcast. And I know in the beginning, a lot of people questioned Anjali's background. I did not, because I knew that she was part of the intelligence community, just the way she presented herself and some of the terminology she used. It was IC speak, and I knew she was genuine. And I know recently I stated that Anjali was interviewed by members of the UAP task force, and I believe Ted McMillan reached out to Jay Stratton. And Jay Stratton made the statement, unequivocal statement, that no member of the UAP task force officially or unofficially interviewed Anjali. And when I read that, I go, okay, Jay, we need to straighten out the record, because I know what you really meant to say and you didn't say it. So I wanted to at least bridge that subject first and foremost. And so with Anjali, I was just wanted to know, in your own words, what was your experience like? Someone or other people interviewed you. They talked to you. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely. I was interviewed as well at the Lincoln Memorial in August of 2021 at the presser. I was interviewed by a lady and a gentleman. I had to really jog my brain to recollect that, because I spoke to so many people that day, and I wasn't keeping my own personal recording of what was happening around me. And so I don't have a complete picture of all of the people that I spoke to that day. But it was previously mentioned on the Gaia Network television show Cosmic Disclosure by Richard Doty, who is a self-confessed prior disinformation intelligence officer. He said on that show that I was interviewed by two official people that day, and he was correct. And I just want to set that straight, because on that show, I was kind of taken aback. I didn't recollect it very well. I had a lot of other directions that my mind was going. So I followed up on that, and yes, that is correct. So as far as my other contact with people who were associated with the UAP task force and taking interviews and presenting those interviews to them, I had a gentleman who contacted me, and through him, he brought in 2 other friends. I had multiple encounters with the first gentleman, and by encounters, I mean phone calls and Zoom conversations. And then he brought in a couple of friends, and they were interested in, they asked a lot of questions of the beings, and I gave them the best interpretation and answers that I could that day. It was really kind of a wild experience, the day that I had all 3 gentlemen that I spoke with. Because over the course of the 3 of them and several days, I probably had easily 24 hours of contact with these 3 gentlemen in one way or the other, regarding my experiences with the beings and lifelong experiences, not just what happened in the Mojave. Although they were very interested in that. And they, one of the questions that I thought was an interesting question was, do you know if the tunnel is still there? And I said, yes, the tunnel is still there. They're telling me that it's there. And 2 of the gentlemen asked if they could be members of the expedition team and be part of that collection team, just be present. And I didn't ask a lot of other questions about it. What I said to them was that at the time, my only requirement was that no one came armed. That nobody came with any kinds of weapons or any kinds of thoughts of the need or the desire for a weapon, that they were going to have to leave that aside. So we had contact for a number of months, several months. And so it happened. And, I'm beyond the point of really caring what the public says, because every time someone says, that I wasn't interviewed or that I'm not who I said I was, or just whatever other kinds of things they're saying, it's rolling right off of my back at this point, because I am at the center of my experience, and I'm the only one who can put all of those pieces and all of the contacts that I've had from across the IC, from across social media, and from across other types of messages, and the types of beings who may be communicating. They may be there. There's a chance that humans have developed this ability, and I'm just unaware of it. There is, I have absolute faith that there are higher beings And by higher, I mean that their consciousnesses appear to be much more advanced, older. They appear to have a higher perspective than we do, kind of like they can look down and see inside the entire house at once, where we have to go from room to room to room. They don't have to. They could whole house. They can see it at once. And that doesn't mean omnipresence, and that doesn't mean omniscience. It means that we have a complicated ecosystem. And I have personally and professionally now, I have reached out through the IC community to contact a former colleague, peer, mentor, and absolute hero of mine. Her name is Nicole. And I think that anyone who has worked with me previously who would be watching will know who I'm talking about. And I am in need of Nicole's assistance. If she could reach out to me, it's about time that we finished that lesson we started. So.
Thanks very much, Anjali. And let me interject here some background information. So show of hands of those who are on camera. You heard about the UAP task force. And here's the task force set up by the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence and also the United States Navy through the Office of Naval Intelligence. It is the first announced task force since the Project Blue Book under the Air Force. So if you have this task force studying this very important phenomenon, how many people would you dedicate to this task force? Show of hands. How many? Or you can say out loud.
There would have to be, 50 or so people, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say dozens.
Dozens? Yeah. Leah, are you pretty much?
Between 50 and 100 minimum.
100. Jules, about that much?
So
Oh, Jules, if you type it in the chat, we'll read it off for you because we didn't hear you. Let's just type it. So.
Well, okay, I got the gist of it. Anywhere from 50 to 100. Mm-hmm. All right, I am now going to reveal for the first time the number of people on the task force. That's it. So one member of the task force, Jay Stratton, he was the commander of the task force, as they call it. And of course, it's a Navy thing, right? So you have to have commanders. So he's the commander of the task force. And we also know one other individual, right, who came forward, and that's Dr. Travis Taylor. There's two. And there were like a couple of other people on this task force. That's it. So what Jay Stratton meant to say is this. No member of the UAP task force, his direct reports, and DJ, you're Air Force guy, you know what a direct report is. It's someone you supervise personally, and you're responsible for writing their performance evaluation. So no member of the task force, all three of my guys that I was responsible for as a career service officer, I was responsible for their promotions and their career development, so forth and so on. No member interviewed Anjali. That's three people. Now, who did interview Anjali? So in order for this small, tiny task force, the first any kind of entity within the U.S. government since Project Blue Book, to do anything, it had to do something which, DJ, very familiar, these words. It's called interagency outreach. Mm-hmm. The interagency is the other agencies. For example, you have the CIA, the DIA, the NSA, the alphabet soup, the major organizations of the intelligence community. They relied on outreach in order to get any work done. So it's the outreach to the task force that interviewed Anjali. And a member of that task force was cognizant of the interview taking place. And in fact, the interagency continued to interact with the task force. And when the actual interview occurred, Jay Stratton was no longer commander of the task force, but he kept into the email loop. So he knew what was going on. And so they would not have reached out to Anjali unless something was validated. And that is the fact that she is an intelligence community officer. And how does one tell if another member is an intelligence community officer? Well, first of all, there's something called, in the old days, it was called JPAS, JPAS. It stood for Joint Personnel, I believe stands for Joint Personnel Adjudication System. And if you're in the DOD side, your name is going to be in there as having a top secret clearance, and it will have all the compartments that you have been read into. On my end, Scattered Castles on the civilian side, it's called the same thing. It's called Scattered Castles, and it has the same information. It has my name and all of the compartments I was read into. They would not have reached out to Anjali unless they knew that she wasn't someone off the street who's an experiencer, because there are many, many, many experiencers, as Deb would tell you. There are many, many experiencers out there, and all of us probably are experiencers as well. But she was an experiencer who happened to be a member of the intelligence community, and that's what got their attention. And secondly, when she talks about beings, if they thought that she was somewhat disturbed because she talked about these beings, they would not have contacted her, because they know that these beings are real. They know that there is a presence of these other non-humans on the planet. And thank you, Dr. Gary Nolan, because he said the same thing. This knowledge is known within the intelligence community. So it was the outreach people with the cognizance of the UAP task force who reached out to Anjali. And they may not identify themselves by true affiliation because they were undercover. And what does that mean? That means that your affiliation with the IC has to be protected. And what is the two agencies that can do that? Well, one is DIA, because they have a Defense Human Service. They too have human officers collecting human intelligence, so they have to be undercover. And what's the other agency that's been doing it since 1947? My guys, back home office, CIA. So it was at that level of the intelligence community that reached out to Anjali because they knew she was genuine. They found her information in the appropriate personnel databases to verify that she had the clearances that she said she had. And then thirdly, and most importantly, they knew that her contact experiences were real because they knew about the contact experiences that others have had, even within the intelligence community. And I'll just name one person who's come out, my buddy at CIA, Jim Simivan, who stated that, oh yes, he's had these contact experiences.
That's right.
And I'm sure come later this year, you'll hear more about intelligence officers with contact experiences. So I just want to set the record straight. Yes, Jay is right that no member of the UAP task force interviewed Anjali. The other three people on that task force, they didn't interview Anjali, but the outreach people did. The interagency outreach people did, with the full cognizance of the members of the task force. And so let the record stand that this is what actually happened. And so if you disbelieve me or disbelieve Anjali, fine. I'm not here to convince you one way or the other. You can believe anything you want. You can believe what other people in the government who you think belong to the government tell you. It's fine, because toward the end of this year, as Science Bob McGuire stated at the Spaced Out Radio Vegas party, and as Dr. Nolan stated, something is going to occur. Some event will occur. It's the disclosure we all have been waiting for, and it all will be laid out. So I just wanted to say that.
Hey, John, I'd like to interject right now that the significance of people like yourself, Anjali, Jim Semivan, coming out and talking about this amongst the IC community is akin to Dave Fravor coming out and people in the aviation community saying, man, if this youngest Air Wing commander in the Navy, Top Gun graduate Dave Fravor and Alex Dietrich and Chad Underwood and Ryan Graves, if they can come and talk about it, then that means I can talk about it. That's the significance of you guys coming out, I think, is that your colleagues are going to have that have been holding this inside are going to have a sigh of relief about it. in my opinion. Also, I want to say regarding something that Anjali said, I want to say that the fact that the phenomenon is able to have this sort of top-down view of the entire house, I would really appreciate that, because I've lost both spare set of car keys. And with that ability, like, you know what I mean? Like I could see the whole house at once. Oh, there they are. And I keep them in this little Ziploc bag in case you're out in the woods and it starts raining, your car keys are still going to work. So I would love to have that ability, Anjali. I know that. Anyway.
Transcend.
Yes, ma'am. So did you do? So Linda was trying to come in and ask a question to you guys. I don't know if she's going to make it in or not. But would you, Anjali, would you like to say something about what John said, or would you like to continue that discussion?
Well, I would like to say, just to follow up on that one of the neatest parts of the interview experience with me and the three gentlemen was not only just how incredibly respectful and informed they were, and curious, very curious, but they were also affirming and validating quite often. They would say things such as, we have other sources who also tell us that. And then sometimes they'd raise their eyes and say, oh, yeah, we have other sources that say that. And I understood, that this was something that they were heavily invested in. And I appreciate their time. And I think that we had and have a good relationship. And I enjoy working with others. I have I enjoy working with folks that typically others would shy away from, I guess. I'm not hesitant at all in this experience that I'm having. And I think I've made that fairly well known publicly. There have been some developments and some redirections. And I can acknowledge that. I can't wait for the other experiencers from the IC to come forward and help you understand why what I said can be both true to me, and I could have been physically inside of another place, and at the same time, the other people that I was with do not experience that. It's a part of the phenomena. I can't understand it. I can explain to you what the beings that I'm in contact say. I can try to interpret that to the best of my ability, and always with the knowledge of a couple of things. Number one, that I became an intelligence officer isn't that kind of odd, and that I was working at the Pentagon isn't that even odder, and and that I had this contact after doing intel work for the USMC. I keep looking at the desert as if you can see. I'm literally looking west. I don't know. I'm trying to show you the desert. I completely lost my train of thought now. If someone wants to get back on it.
Okay. My question for you was going to be, and I'll ask John if we can turn it over to Nathan and get the cabbies with some initial questions for you guys. But during any of these meetings with the intelligence officials, did anybody ask you, for example, what kind of conditioner that you use?
What kind of conditioner I use?
Yes.
No.
No. Okay. That would have been my first question. Nathan, John.
Same brand. Hey, DJ, it's the same brand you and I use.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, me and John are using Prel, I think. I can't remember. But yeah, I know, right? But no, it is interesting though that people spoke with you, and maybe it wasn't those three guys that are on that staff, but obviously somebody did speak with Anjali, and they would be very interested to hear what she has to say, given the nature of her experience and also the nature of her background, the seriousness of it. John, can I give it over to Nathan to get a question?
Sure. I just
or,
want to interject one thing.
Yeah, please do.
That people might think, oh, I thought it was illegal to CIA to contact U.S. citizens or anybody. No, not if you're a member of the intelligence community.
Right.
You're contacting a colleague, not a U.S. citizen off the street. So I just want to make that plain, because I'm sure some people are wondering about CIA's operations inside the country. It is authorized if the person approaches CIA first, or if that other person is a member of the intelligence community. So I just want to say that off the bat, and Nathan, take it away.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Sean. I'm cognizant of time, and I know we've only got Leah for another few minutes, so I'm going to pass it to her before she has to take off.
Sure. So I have a little bit, I think, of a maybe perfunctory question, which is just as general citizens, what do you see our responsibilities as being in and around this subject, particularly as it pertains to like government involvement?
Well, I think the participation of citizens will be expanded, and in fact, it will be essential, because once the government discloses what it knows, citizens will need to carry forward and complete disclosure. Because I think all the government's going to actually reveal at the beginning is that, yes, the craft we're seeing is flown by non-humans. And yes, there's a non-human presence on Earth. Basically, everything that Dr. Gary Nolan stated at the ISALT conference. And it's 18 minutes that pretty much said it all. And you'll be hearing a lot more of that later this year, and greater detail from many more people. But from there, I mean, for me, it's like, okay, they're here and they're visiting us. To me, that's not as exciting as who they are, why they're here.
Right.
And how should we contact them? What is the interaction that we as humanity should have with these other beings? And so that's something that citizens can come forward with. Also, there are citizens who've had like not so happy encounters with these beings for whatever reason. And so that needs to be taken seriously, that there's nothing wrong with them. They don't need to be treated in a conventional sense, in a conventional mental health therapeutic.
Like pathologized, basically.
Exactly. And so I'm hoping that the stigma will be removed from that. And so we can have an honest discussion of that. You know, some people perceive these in a way that perceive these beings in a way that they don't quite understand, and that misunderstanding might cause some consternation. Added with that is the stigma associated with that. That just adds to the bad experience, more so than the experience itself. So I would suggest citizens will continue, especially with their governments, because I believe other countries will come forward after the US comes forward, that these other countries have information about this phenomenon that they've been keeping hidden. They've been kept hidden, and they're waiting for the U.S. to take the first step. So, pressure your legislators to come forward with more information and make it part of the political discourse. We're going into in the U.S. We're going into a presidential campaign this year, and so make it part of the campaign. So that's what citizens can do: raise awareness that this is real, and the government can remove the stigma from itself, from other government officers, from the military, and help civilians also remove that stigma. Because when you see who's going to come forward and what position they held in the government, it's a foregone conclusion that this is real, that this is a real thing that has happened.
Yeah, I want to get Anjali on that too.
Please. Go ahead, and would you restate that, or did you already write it down, Anjali, her question?
Sure. I think the question was, what are the responsibilities, or what do we see as the responsibilities of citizens in after disclosure? Was that right, Leah?
Yep. Yeah, either in ushering the process. And John was so kind to answer this almost from a participatory citizen perspective, but even just in the sense of being good neighbors, right, to other humans. You know, how do we sort of experience this collectively in a way that's supportive of others?
Absolutely. Well, I think that John touched on a really important point, and that is that not everyone has a positive contact experience, that there are experiencers out there who have had negative experiences and who have residual trauma from that. And, this is well documented, and we have to acknowledge that. And one thing that's going to be really important from a government position is once we can finally admit as a nation that this contact exists and it has been ongoing and that we've known about it and that yes, we did hide it and this is why, and see how far the conversation is taken. I think that I'm sorry, I forgot my train of thought, Leah. Do you remember? This happens to me. I'm sorry. I have epilepsy. It's just.
Oh, no stress.
No worries. No worries.
Basically, like, what are our responsibilities to our fellow man or fellow humans in this situation?
There was some place I was trying to go with that, and I don't remember exactly where it was. But going back to our spiritual responsibilities, I would say that it's one of the, I just remembered it, Leah. I'm so sorry. Okay. That because we are so behind the curve in it admitting that this is ongoing and having a dedicated effort and a dedicated force that is well funded and well supported to try to analyze what's actually going on and who is having contact with whom, then we really don't have a very clear picture of what's going on. Okay, I can tell you, until I'm blue in the face, what different beings are saying. But one of the things that I am working on myself
Excuse me.
to analyze who is delivering which kinds of messages to us, where they may be coming from, for what purpose, what is motivating them, and other signs in society that may support interference or signs of interference. So I'm working diligently at developing this methodology, kind of based on some of what I understood from my time, working in the IC, some of the things that I've learned. I'm trying to put that to play right away here. I've been doing this for a couple of years. It's very difficult in intelligence to deal with a small amount of data points. Okay, you need a ton of them before you can reach any kind of conclusion. So it's not like, even if I've had, let's say I've had, conscious contact once a year, I'm just throwing this out there, nobody get attached to this, okay? This is just a hypothetical. I've had, let's just say, for the first 45 years of my life, I had contact once a year and I experienced some kind of conscious communication, okay? That certainly doesn't mean that as the years have gone by, that this has been like a collective experience in my own mind, okay? Because it's very complicated. It's very, very complicated. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that the IC, the government, has a responsibility to get these experiencers, especially the ones from the IC, together and get these communications on record, and then put that up against the templates and matrices that we have out there, because they do exist. I already know that some of them exist that we could use to try to understand what is actually happening here. And we aren't doing it. And that's going to be to our own regret, I do believe. We have waited a very long time. And I think that's a real crying shame. Now, as far as spiritual responsibilities and people, One of the things that the beings that I have been in contact want us to understand is that through our meditation, through meditation and presence of mind and presence of attention, okay, really being mindfully attentive in a moment, and they're saying, and recognizing that diversity in the forms of life will help to prepare everyone for coming contact, and that some of this, that the contact will be experienced through conscious communication. That doesn't mean to say that you won't visibly have visual perception. Okay, I'm not saying that, and that everybody won't be able to see that. I'm saying that when we hear and communicate, it will most likely, with the vast majority of beings, be through conscious communication. And that doesn't mean that they don't have language. They have a language that we do not understand. And beyond that, just real quick, they're also saying, they want me to throw this in there very quickly, to remind everyone that the importance of meditation and recognizing the collectiveness of the human spirit, the human mind, the human energy that we have, that we can collectively tap into this whatever this is in the ether. There's whatever is connecting all of us.
The noosphere.
Sure, we can say spirit.
Yeah.
Sure, that we will recognize and be able to communicate with each other when we are scattered and no longer have electricity at our hands.
Ooh, that is that's a very scary proposition of not having electricity. But yeah, I mean, what could be better than humans seeing in one another value instead of seeing, oh, this person's different, or their outlook, or their politics, or their look out at the social framework of America. That stuff is not important. Just seeing value in one another, and somebody recently I heard said there is no them, there's only us. So can't remember where that was. Anyway, I have a question from first of all, welcome to Linda. Linda Thompson made it here with, we had to send 16 or 17 links, and one of them
breadcrumbs.
Awesome. And I have one question from the internet for John.
Before you go, DJ, I think Leah may have to take off.
Yes.
So I want to give her a chance
I need to take off.
Yeah.
I just wanted to jump in and say thank you to Anjali and to John for your considered and very thoughtful answers. And as always, thank you so much to the cabbies and to the fans.
Thank you, Prime Time, for being here. We appreciate you.
All right.
Have a
Take
good
care,
night.
all.
Okay. And ironically, for John and Anjali, our newer cabbie, Matt, who has a Bigfoot show, is having a Bigfoot experiencer on tonight that just had to get that individual's like, I really have tonight to be able to speak with you about this. And I said, Matt, if you're getting this kind of an experience, we'll see you later. Have a good show. So that's what Matt's recording. But hopefully next time we see you guys, you'll get to experience Matt. He's a great cabbie. So we have this question from Twitter. This is from Wow3692525, and he said, "Hi, can you ask John how he knows about the arrival of our visitor friends in 2027?" So, sir, would you, John, please?
Yes, that's nothing official. Let me tell you about 2027. I was asked that in a secure facility, a SCIF, about what I knew about 2027, because the word in government is that something is going to happen, and that comes from not unique government knowledge, but their monitoring of social media, their contacts with Chris Bledsoe, and everyone knows that Chris Bledsoe has had the alphabet soup of the IC and the federal government visiting him. And he's been very, very vocal about 2026, 2027, something happening. And it's coming through as well through channelers and experiencers. And so there's some marker in the federal government, in the intelligence area, that there's something happening in 2027. John, you an experiencer, have you heard anything? Have you have any inkling about 2027? And I said, well, I actually deferred, and I told them, why don't you contact Anjali and contact Chris Bledsoe, because they talked about those years.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, I'm hoping that 2027 will be the year where they feel comfortable to arrive in public. Whereas, the government already knows of their existence, the public does not. And I told these people in this secure facility, and it was in 2022, you have 5 years to get everyone prepared. If you're going to do disclosure, do it now. Because if they do decide to show up, you're going to have a lot of explaining to do. I also mentioned Lou Elizondo. So, Lou has been saying that, in 2022, wait 5 years and it'll all be out.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
He said that? Oh.
Yes. And
Yes.
and so it's not just like all be out. What does that mean? It's not just, we're gonna disclose that what you're seeing up in the sky is real. That's not disclosure. Real disclosure is who's flying these craft up in the air, and where they come from, and do we know about them? And according to Dr. Gary Nolan, who seems extremely well connected, that what he stated is probably pretty close to what the government actually knows. But we'll need more than one voice other than Dr. Gary Nolan to state that in succession of people who have the program clearances to actually back up Dr. Gary Nolan, who is not an official in the IC. He is a consultant to the IC. So once we have officials in the IC and in the Pentagon saying that, it'll give more credence to their presence, and perhaps then we can have a discussion about 2027.
I have I'm passing it to Deb right now because I have a question about that, but I'll wait till it comes around. So Deb, please go ahead, ma'am.
Oh, okay. I think we skipped Nathan, so we have to go back to Nathan.
Did we skip Nathan?
But
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
okay, yeah. So I just wanted to, I've had a lot of different questions come to my mind, but the one that really is catching me right now is all these institutes that seem to be doing like a tug of war with this topic. We have the White House pulled some things away, Aero's doing some things, the Navy was doing some things, the U.S. Air Force is pretending they're not doing anything, the Space Force is definitely doing something, NASA's about to talk to us on the 31st. So with all of that happening, who should we be turning to, and what is the role of places like the Monroe Institute, who are also trying to contribute to these conversations?
Is that for Anjali or John?
Both.
both.
Whoever wants to take it first. I know that
Sure.
either of you can answer this one.
I will defer to John first.
Okay, I'll take that. So everyone should know that, when the remote viewing program was removed from the federal government, one of the hardest things to do in federal government is to kill programs. Basically, what you do is you move the program into another office by creating another office and hiding it there. And so you never get rid of a federal program once it's started. And for remote viewing, it was removed from the federal government proper and outsourced to outside organizations such as the Monroe Institute, such as I would also add the Fireside Institute in Atlanta as two organizations that are doing remote viewing. Dr. Paul Smith has his own organization, and now there's an International Remote Viewing Association. And so a lot of remote viewing still happens, but it's outside the government purview. So that addresses Monroe Institute. They're very important because they focus on consciousness, and consciousness is a major part of the experience, as well as a major part of the physics of how they fly. And so to answer your first part of the question, it seems like we have a lot of cooks making one big mess of a stew, but they all have parts to contribute because no one single organization has it all. And if anyone has it all, I would say the Central Intelligence Agency probably is that organization, because they were there from the very beginning, from the time of Roswell, and perhaps also the Navy, because there was an Office of Naval Intelligence since 1882. So they definitely they've been there since the beginning. So these two organizations I would pay attention to. Now, as far as like getting it all together, that's what this disclosure is all about, that Dr. Gary Nolan has been hinting at, that there will be this admission by the government of what he said about the craft being non-human and the non-human presence. They're finally going to get it together under one conductor, conducting the orchestra of many, many instruments playing their part. And I believe that conductor is actually the intelligence committees of the U.S. Congress. And so who do we have to thank for being the conductors? Well, my hat's off to Senator Kristen Gillibrand. She's been very instrumental in putting it all together. And she has a role to play as well as the conductor. She can't play the instruments, but she knows the sheet of music she's working from. And she's trying to get all these musicians to play the same sheet of music, their part, whatever instruments they're bringing to the symphony. So that's what's going to happen at the toward the end of the year.
Anjali, if you have something on that, please go ahead, ma'am.
I don't have anything of real value to add. I'm not surprised, that we have a tug of war when you have a deeply compartmented program, such as something like this would be. You would expect for it to be, this is my new thing lately, babushka dolled. Yeah, I'm so into babushka dolls suddenly. It just keeps coming. It works. I'm telling you, it's such a great metaphor for so many things. But that's really a good way of looking at how deeply compartmented this is. And sometimes we can easily lose sight of those programs over the years in the IC, outside of those that are, who are read into them, simply because we stop talking about them and there's a turnover in workforce and blah, blah, blah. And so I'm not surprised. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you very much for those thoughtful answers. And I know the question I asked John, Deb, I think got 3 or 4 people on Twitter that asked her that same question. So I think we knocked those out. Okay, so now we have about 30 minutes left. We're probably going to end up going over 15. So let's try to shorten things up a little bit, because we actually do have a lot to get to in the time that we have together this evening. And like I said, with the concurrence of our special guests, we might go over 15 minutes, but we still got to just tighten it up a little bit. So Nathan, please go ahead, sir. And then we'll go to Linda.
Sure. So we live in a time where I think it's fair to say a lot of the people of the world have a distrust of the institutions that are here. And the distrust is only growing. It seems difficult to find a consensus opinion on who to listen to, and there's been a legacy, particularly with this topic, of obfuscation and disinformation, and you name it. So you can understand why a lot of folks' heads are spinning sometimes when they hear about institutions sort of taking the lead in this process. And I was wondering, kind of broadly, what are your perspectives on whether or not institutions can actually handle what disclosure is? Or is it on some level a deeply personal process that really only can happen at an individual level? What is the role of the institution and the individual here? And I guess I'll pass to John first, and then I definitely want to hear from Anjali. So,
okay, real quickly now, I would say that after disclosure happens by the government to remove the stigma that there are actually non-human craft flying in our skies, and that there are non-human beings, a presence of non-human beings on our planet, from there, the institutions can take over, because that's the biggest stumbling block right now, is that the government will not admit what it has known for decades. And once the government admits, first, they have to admit that, yes, we've lied, and the government has lied. And yes, we can now acknowledge what you've suspected and known all along. Everyone here listening to us who are into this topic, they're going to listen to it and say, gee, that was a nothing burger. I already knew that. But think about the 8 billion people on the planet. We're trying to reach the rest of the planet, not just the enthusiasts who are now tuning into Calling All Beings. Those are the people we're trying to reach because we want to have a global discourse. And that's when the other institutions come in. And we're talking about religious beliefs. We're talking about sociologists, psychologists, physical physiologists, therapists, and everything else in society, including the scientists who will have to relearn the science they were taught. And the rest of us will have to relearn the history that we've been taught. And I think the institutions can take over from there. And that's why I support the Project Titan initiative by San Marino going to the United Nations. That's where it needs to happen. And I've told the folks in government doing this disclosure, if you guys just talk about the non-human beings and you talk about the non-human craft and don't show what you have, it's back to square one. You guys got to release everything you have and let civilian scientists and academia globally look at what you have. And maybe they can come up with something better than this flying triangle that's a spy plane the Air Force wants to keep hidden. And so that's my quick answer to that. There is a role to play, but after the government actually admits it's lied and we acknowledge that they're here.
That's right.
Anjali was giving you an amen back there. She was raising the roof. Go ahead, Anjali.
I just had to give him the amen on that the black triangle, and I think that anybody who has been on Twitter this week understands why. It's been a wild, strange week, but disclosure and how deeply personally will we experience it? Well, how deeply personal do you feel about someone being inside of your mind, directly communicating with your consciousness? I'd say that's about as intimate as it gets. It is a very intimate experience. And I don't mean intimate in any kind of sexual way. I mean it in a very emotional, spiritual, informational, okay, because you get so much information from it. It's an immersive experience that I don't think that we can avoid. So what does that mean? I have no idea. I have no idea what exactly it's going to look like when people begin coming forth and we begin having actual physical contact with beings. Okay. I don't know what that's going to look like. I suspect some things, and people aren't, they're probably not going to like the things that I suspect. This is not yes, we are going into a very interesting period. We are also going into a very difficult period. This is not going to be a period without its struggles, and without its enlightening moments, without its revelations. And I think that as long as we all understand that this is more than a visual sensory experience and an auditory experience, okay? If that's the only kind of contact that you've had so far, you are really in for a huge surprise. It gets very personal very quickly.
Well, since we have 4 experiencers on the panel here, at least, Nathan and Debs and myself are anxious to have this experience. So, if Exo-Academian can't make it happen for us, maybe Anjali can. I don't know. Let's get Linda and then Julie in there with their questions, and then we're going to go into the round table where we'll all put our topics out there one by one onto the table, including our guests of honor, Anjali and John, or Johnjali. So anyway, go ahead, Linda.
Julie, why don't you go ahead? You were here first.
The sister from another mister. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Sister Linda. Can y'all hear me all right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, as an experiencer and talking with other experiencers and listening to what Chris Bledsoe has had to say, and you, Anjali, I am personally convinced that they are so interested in the lady because it is Mother Earth. It is Mother Earth communicating with us. It is the Holy Spirit. It is the female of the Trinity. It is what they are afraid to admit because it will upset the apple cart of religion. It is something that communicates, like you said, in your head. It gets in your head and it hears your thoughts. It knows your soul. And
Yes.
it has everything to do with spirituality. And I'm wondering if the IC community has also picked up sensor readings as to something. I believe that it actually works with dark matter quantum mechanics. That is part of how it communicates. It's part of how it cloaks. It's part of how it manifests. I mean, even the sulfur smell of things that come that people say, oh, it's a demon, that can just be alchemy. You know, I'm wondering if y'all have anything to say on that kind of matter. Thank you.
Ooh. Well, I tell you what, one of the things that I absolutely love that you said, Jules, that I could really relate to, it resonates with me, was the idea that we're experiencing all of this through quantum mechanics. I agree. I think that there is truly something there. I think that it has to do with the breath. You know, we're always talking about the importance of breath. And I think people are misunderstanding. It's not that it's because we're just exchanging oxygen and getting out carbon dioxide. I think it's that we are taking in, like, we're getting feedback, like it's a biosphere. All right, we're breathing.
Breath is life. Yeah, breath is life.
There is so much that is living in our air. There is so much water in our air. And we already know that water is conscious. Water reacts to thoughts. It reacts to our intentions. It responds to us emotionally in the way that it shifts and changes under our focus and our observation. So
it's life.
It
too, like air. It's
like water is in the air, for the love of Pete, and we are breathing this in.
And it's memory.
Breathing in.
Water is memory of the whole universe. I mean, it holds memory.
It's so divine. It's so I tend to agree that I think that we're right on the cusp of learning a lot, and I just hope that we continue that progressive path forward in a positive.
Thank you so much. I also love where Jules said that Mother Earth is communicating with us, because that's something that just personally resonates with me also. All right, so we're going to get Linda in there, and then we're going to get into the fireside chat portion where everyone will throw their topics out for the group. And again, let's try to just tighten it up, just because we want to be respectful of the time of our guests. Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay. I just want to say it's wonderful being here with John and Anjali. And really, it's difficult to ask anything very fast. But do either one of you have any experience flying the craft?
Ooh.
I could go first. I have experiences writing the craft, at least two of them. So I've been on board one in terms of being examined. But as far as a craft and movement, I do have very, very vivid memories of being at least on 2 craft that were flying in our skies. And so I have that experience, but I never was a pilot of a craft in recent memory. I did have a QHHT, or quantum healing hypnosis technique session, where I was flying a craft, but I was not human. I was another type of non-human being visiting this planet a long, long time ago. So I have that recovered QHHT session memory.
Okay. Thank you.
Couple different lifetimes. Awesome, man. And Linda, I got to just to throw it back at you. Have you flown the craft?
Yes.
Man, you don't even have your pilot's license. This is ridiculous. All right, fine. The FAA may
How about
not
Anjali?
recognize Linda, but but the phenomenon does. Go ahead, Anjali.
I will have to say that I don't know. I have had conscious communication with a being from that identifies itself from the group that I have called the Council, who has shown me how their craft works. Okay. And it has to do with their hand slipping into a mold of some sort, that's, I don't know if it's, I think it's just specifically for their specific hand, like a personal mold. And it's like 3 prongs, but it's like fingers. Okay. And they slip in and it connects to the neural network of the craft. And so suddenly the craft and the pilot are one hybrid, being for a little while. They don't remain that way. But so no, I don't have that experience, but I have experienced it through them, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Amazing. And one of Linda's connections, Ganga today told me that skin of the craft has embedded waveguides in the skin, and therefore the pulses of or signals of or electricity that runs that craft runs through those waveguides. And I found that fascinating because that seems like the way you would do it if you were, that advanced. So it's fascinating. Okay, so we've been through everybody. Am I right, Money?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll save my question for after. Maybe if we can get through. Because I do have a question, but I'm not sure if we should go through the round table and I'll get mine in. What are you thinking, Nathan?
Yeah, whatever you think is best.
All right. I'll throw this in there real quick to Anjali and John. You know what? No, I'll save that for. I'll save this one for the question for the round table. So let's go right into it, and we can start with. Would you like to start with your topic, John, and then Anjali, and then we'll go through the cabbies, or would you like to get the cabbies topics first? You don't care?
Doesn't matter.
Okay, John, go ahead and start us off. We'll go through the guests of honor first, and then we'll just go down through the cabbies and our guest cabbie tonight, Linda.
Okay, I'm very happy to be here. This is almost one of my last interviews I'll do until after disclosure. In this entire week, I was involved in a series of talks sponsored by Dr. Jack Sarfati, who's a physicist who worked with the CIA and understands the mechanics and the quantum characteristics of these craft and how they work. And this morning we had a great talk about the consciousness has quantum characteristics. And physicists are actually working on like a quantum equation to understand consciousness. And you're absolutely right about the craft having a consciousness aspect to it. And the government actually knows that there is a consciousness aspect to the phenomenon. Without the consciousness aspect, all of this makes no sense whatsoever. It only makes sense when you add consciousness to it. And absolutely right. Absolutely right. And there they were, and absolutely right that
They're calling Anjali.
right. The metamaterials are infused with waveguides that respond in a very small, short wavelength, in the terahertz wavelength. And something about the metamaterials and that wavelength of electromagnetic energy causes interesting effects, causes it to actually have those characteristics, those 5 observables, using very little energy. And that's something that's seriously being talked about. So I'll leave it with that. Thank you.
All right. So so we're going to just comment on that because that's basically what it is they're sort of like conversation starters. So go from me, Anjali, and down through the cabbies. This is again what I heard from somebody who's an experiencer. Ganga today, I believe that Linda knows this person, if I'm not mistaken, and it sounded very plausible and logical because the way that we construct aircraft and wire them today seems extremely, I guess, archaic compared to what I would think that how the phenomenon would transfer information, signals, pulses, direction, information back and forth throughout the craft. It would seem to me that it would be something like that. So it's interesting that is where you've verified that the community is headed in that direction. Go ahead, Anjali. Do you have anything on that, ma'am?
Oh my goodness! I mean, come on.
She's like, I've designed this in the easel in the other room. I could draw this out for you. So.
Yeah, of course. Do I have anything to say? I could talk for a couple of days, but I think that everybody's pretty much aware of where I stand on this being a consciousness manifestation. There are so many intricacies to things that I have learned that I don't have time here to really present, which is the only reason that I have this limited podcast that I'll be doing. It's really only to try to present information in a way where I have the I guess the freedom to dive deeply into a topic and present it in the way that I think would be best understood. And I haven't had a platform to do that, and so that makes
you do now. It's calling all. You will bring you back for the entire hour. You can talk about it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I'm excited to be able to put together these really what I hope will be just explanatory videos with other guests who will be able to add their own insights into not just my experience, but the experience of being contacted by non-human entities. Okay. So without consciousness, there is nothing. I mean, there's just everything is consciousness. That's what we're doing here. It's, just we're learning and growing and becoming and realizing that we already are, and we're shedding off layers that don't belong to us, and we're reaffirming what does. And I think it's a beautiful ride, and there will be a nuts and bolts aspect to it. But golly gee, I'm really not even kidding when I say if that's where you're focusing, you are missing out on really where the bread and butter of all of this is going to lead. So.
Yeah, just both things are fascinating, to different archetypes, different persons find a different aspect of it. I agree with you, that where this is going and the connection between all of us and how even they interact with the craft consciousness space. But there's some people, that just read popular science and popular mechanics, and they just want to know, how does this tech work? I mean, that's what makes the world go around, is we're all different. Nathan, go ahead, brother. You want to react to that real quick?
Sure, actually, and I'm just going to connect it up with my own topic because I think it's pretty similar. I mean, if what we're looking at here is an upending of reality as we know it, which I think many of us would argue that's exactly what's happening. That the world that we thought we understood is not the way we understood it. That reality is far more complicated. That it is far more diverse. That is teeming with life and intelligence, and not just those that are on a similar level of intelligence that we are, other embodied beings, but those that aren't embodied and all in between. It's a very sort of big zoo, if you will. How difficult is it going to be for the average person to really get all of that? How much time is it going to take, in your estimation, to understand that multifaceted reality, if in fact that is what we are stepping toward?
Okay, Debs,
Well,
that goes to you, my friend. And then
okay.
it'll go all the way around the.
Okay, so I have to say that I have a materialistic view of consciousness, which is annoying to some people who don't, but I actually do think that wavelengths, light, sound, frequency, EM, terahertz, that waveguide you were talking about, they're all integral to all of this. When people talk about raising your vibration and all that, they don't even realize how important that is, because with these wavelengths, we can reach all the way across the universe. They just keep going. Wavelengths control whether or not something's even matter or sound or light. It goes back and forth. So I think that that is going to be the secret. And then I think once people really understand that and they see that it's not magic, that it's a real scientific thing, because we're going to get it with quantum computing and we're going to get it with other examples as people keep playing with it, then they'll be able to accept it as reality, as you were saying, Nathan. I'm tying it back to your statement. I think that when they understand the science, they'll understand what's going on a little better.
Awesome.
And so let's go to this. We could go to Jules. What would you like to say about Nathan's topic? Then we'll go to Linda.
I think that they're going to have to accept that dark matter is real. I think they're going to have to accept that dark matter phenomenon has a lot to do with all of this, the consciousness aspect of it, the manifestation. Consciousness underlies all matter. And I believe that there's an entity, whether it be Mother Earth or some alien civilization, that can manipulate this dark matter, and it can make things disappear, it can make things appear, it can travel through time and dimensions. It explains an awful lot of everything, including the cold spots, because it sucks all the energy out before as it's manifesting. I really think that science is going to have to just man up and say dark matter is real and quantum mechanics is real, and this is how reality is. Just forget what you were told. That's my opinion.
Dr. Hein is so excited right now that you just did this. He's in his apartment going, yeah, right on, girl. That's what I told you.
That's right.
When you were out here.
Martin
right.
Fleischman Memorial Project, man. Martin Fleischman Memorial Project.
Linda, how difficult will it be to understand? How much time will it take for people to, and if I understand, tell me if I got this wrong, Nathan, for people to accept the multiple dimensions, that the reality is beyond what they can just see and feel and taste and hear and touch. Is that correct, Nathan?
You got it, brother.
Okay.
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, if you take there's so many dimensions. I don't exclude anything in this. I think we all intuitively in us realize this consciousness and realize that there's different dimensions and vibrations and frequencies, but we're so used to using other terminology and other things to describe it. You know, it's like feelings or gut reactions, or something's not right today or whatever. I mean, that's the kind of stuff you hear at offices all the time when you're talking with people. So they're basically all sensing these things. They just don't have the language or framework to put it in. So I think everybody's different, but I just say don't make it an age situation, because age, I don't think, has anything to do with this at all. And that's one of my concerns. So yeah, it's all consciousness and quantum. It's just all together.
John, thank you, Linda.
Mm-hmm.
How difficult, how much time will it take before people will accept the nature that there's a reality beyond what they're sensing?
Well, I don't think it'll take that long. I think it'll and within our lifetimes. I think the science will have to rewrite everything. Philosophy will have to rethink everything, and religions will have to re-preach everything, because what we think is real has not been real. And to Linda's point, without the consciousness aspect of any of this, we can't make it work. And so here's these physicists this morning in Dr. Safadi's group who were talking about, how essential it is for consciousness to explain the phenomena. And these are physicists who are on the cutting edge.
Right.
And they're working on equations to make that happen, because, they're still physicists and they need to write equations. They need to formulate equations to, make it turn into whatever equals zero, and that's the goal of theoretical physics. You got to get back to zero somehow. But they're doing a tremendous amount of work. And I know they're publishing these lectures, I think, through Tim Ventura. And so through Tim Ventura's outlets, you can see this morning's lecture, but it was really brilliantly portrayed of how they're thinking about it. And so that's the only comment I have. And I just want to leave with to Jules. We used to be a matriarchal world until everything turned upside down. And so I don't blame any particular religion, but I used to be Catholic. I'm a Catholic in perpetual recovery. And a lot of that patriarchy came through there, and we used to be matriarchal. Sure. And I think we'll go back. One of the things we might see is we'll turn into a matriarchal globe in order to make any kind of progress and at least have peace.
Well, men have screwed it up royally.
Oh, yeah.
The girls to try. Anjali, so
I think that would be a beautiful thing.
Thank you. Anjali, so how difficult will it be? How long will it take for people to accept that there's an alternate reality? This is the nature of Nathan's question to the group.
I think that there's a possibility that it won't take more than a few seconds to realize that you need to let go of some really tight paradigms that you've been holding on to. I think it literally happens in a split second. What happens for you beyond that? That's really, that's a different subject. That's where mindfulness and being centered and grounded is going to be so important for you, or for every one of us, because it is how do I put it? It's, I guess, discombobulating. It's discombobulating. It isn't like all of a sudden, we're going to have a press conference and beings come forward and they introduce themselves and we're all just sitting at our TVs going, cool. No.
Pass the chips, please.
Yeah. No. That's not what it's going to be like. Okay. You will know. They will speak to you. You will see them. And how, when, guys, I don't know, but they give the impression that it will happen quickly. It will be swift. And that's why they're trying to warn us, in a sense, that we need to prepare consciously, because it can be incredibly discombobulating. And we can have some pretty fragile psyches in these bodies. And it would behoove all of us to take up some sort of grounding spiritual practice. What that looks like for you, that's none of my business. That it really isn't. That's an individual decision. And I'm not suggesting you take up a religious practice. Okay. I'm suggesting you take up a spiritual practice where you ponder the nature of your own existence, the nature of the source of consciousness. Just start with those two questions. You don't have to get any deeper than that. Just start with those two questions. And
that's pretty deep already, Anjali, I would say.
Sorry.
I'm going to tell you, though, Nathan, I would love to see, I don't know about you, I would love to see Chris Bledsoe, Anjali, and John go like on just a nighttime fishing trip. Wouldn't you?
Oh, my God.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would fly on that wall.
Fishing trip with those two. I would do it in a heartbeat, except
Let's do it.
Used to use any actual hooks.
Yeah, you don't have to, you could just be out there with the net. So
Yeah, okay.
but yeah, we need to get, Chris, Anjali, and John go on a fishing trip, and then I want to hear what happened after that. Okay, so it's down to me and Nathan. I think in answer to your question, I think it's going to run the gamut. I think with you, present company and folks that are sort of like us and are sort of tribe of the phenomenon, or are very much ready to accept what the nature of reality is that we have not yet seen nor experienced, but are welcome and open to. And I think something that Linda may have alluded to is that, maybe some people are actually just suppressing that they believe that this exists and that there is a nature of reality that they haven't experienced. They believe it's out there, but they suppress it. They don't want to talk about it. It's these things you don't tell your friends at work about. Actually, earlier, during some of Anjali's commentary, talking about people in the IC, the culture and the climate that exists, there is an enormous amount of courage that would be necessary for somebody to come out and say, hey, I need to be interviewed about this. I've had experiences, or I've experienced a different part of reality. That is very, very, and John knows this, I know this, Anjali knows this. It's very difficult in that climate to do that because now all of a sudden you're different. So I think it's going to happen all along the spectrum, Nathan, until some sort of irrefutable event happens that is covered so widely that it can't be ignored. And then I think, there's going to be parts of society that are going to have a lot of issues with it. Probably most of society will have a lot of issues with it because we are the minority and not the majority. And then there'll be sort of that center group that kind of thinks about this but don't talk about it. And then there's going to be a group that, probably a predominant group that has no idea this exists. And when they're confronted with it, are going to find it very difficult to manage that. That's my thought. All right. Was that okay, Nathan?
No, it was great. Thank you.
Okay, well, let's go to Debs' topic, and that one will go around the room.
I feel like this is actually tied in a little bit. One of the hardest things for people to accept is that experiencers are having encounters with entities. Going back to what Ruppelt said, that when that was mentioned, they essentially took those reports and put them in the trash. He said that in his book. When you take a look at John Mack, people said, oh, you've gone native, and they try to get him out of Harvard. Do we think, considering that the NDAA did specify that physiological effects and psychiatric effects would be researched, but Arrow hasn't mentioned experiencers one iota since. That the time for the experiencer has come yet, or is it also still being thrown in the trash can?
Okay, so the question is, to just contextualize it into a question, is has the time come for the experiencer in terms of the IC, or has it just been thrown in the trash can? Is that the question?
Yep. That's what I'm concerned about, because it just seems to be the pattern, and I think it needs to change.
Okay, so that's going to Julie first, and then it'll go Linda and John and Anjali, and then myself and Nathan. Go ahead, Jules. What do you think they're considering about experiencers right now in the IC?
I think they are trying to keep us out of it as much as they possibly can. I don't think they are ready to face experiencers at all. It's time for us. Yes, indeed. But I have no idea how we're going to get everybody on the same page, even talking about things being actually real, let alone things actually being interacting with people. You know, I have no clue how we're going to do that. That was going to be one of my questions to UIC people, because I don't know.
You can't though, Jules, right? We're human. So you know that we are not given to that. That's not going to happen. Just look at UFO.
Yeah.
You know?
I know.
We're not going to be on the same page.
It boggles my mind, and I don't know how it's going to happen that they actually bring us into the fold, because right now we're not in the fold. Experiencers aren't. They are trying their best just to push us aside in a corral and not pay any attention to us as much as they possibly can. At least that's how I see it. And I, in my opinion, you know, we are it. We are the ones that this stuff has been trying to interact with all our lives. And we're the ones who can help others when they get interacted with, because we've been dealing with it for all our lives. You know, we've already had the ontological shock. We've already had the pondering of the nature of reality. We've already had the spiritual, you know, desperation, dark souls of the night and all that, and hopefully come through the other side without being insane. You know what I mean?
Just one thing, Jules. Whenever someone says ontological shock on the show, everybody say EXO and just go like that. For EXO, I can hear you. I'm sorry, go ahead. EXO.
Definitely. EXO, yeah. That's how I feel about it.
Thank you, love. I appreciate it, Linda. EXO.
Julie's on fire tonight.
Yes, she is.
Okay. Okay, so I'm a mama bear when it comes to protecting abductees and experiencers. And I get very concerned because I refuse to be treated as a guinea pig and to be treated like I'm some kind of lab rat. And I do not want abductees and experiencers to be treated that way. I do believe, based on very old documents in the CIA papers and other papers, that they are concerned about us as far as what we're capable of doing. And I, you know, talking about the collective consciousness, I don't know if you've ever been in a room of abductees and experiencers that are really tied in together collectively, but there's some really bizarre things that can happen. You know, I mean, electricity, everything. And so I don't think they really want to piss us off. May not go well, but anyway.
I love it. I don't want to piss you off. I don't want to piss you off either. Let's go to John and then Anjali and then Nathan or myself and Nathan. Go ahead.
Unmute.
Yes,
It
sir.
may surprise you that in the ODNI, there's a Microsoft SharePoint server, which is the top secret SCI equivalent of UFO Twitter, where people in the IC can post their experiences. You'd be surprised what's in that database. One of the people who came forward recently wrote a letter to Mr. James Fox of the Marina Brazil film fame. And he was sharing his experiences in that. And they found out about it, and they talked to him, and they considered him serious. And I'll just leave it at that. So if you think that the U.S. government doesn't know about experiencers, I said it before that outside of a UFO convention or conference, the most experiences I've ever met were inside the intelligence community, and there are many, many, many of them, and many of them will be coming forward. I would say at least 4 or more dozen people you'll hear from toward the end of the year who have had some encounters and experiences with this phenomenon, and they're going to be very frank about it. So yes, we are taking it seriously, and we're not treated as if there's something wrong with us.
Great.
And actually, the Havana syndrome and skinwalker hitchhiker effect, they are like high strangeness experiences. And so, they were taken seriously, maybe not at first, but later on they were. And so I would say that, from the government standpoint, they are aware that an encounter with the phenomenon will result in some kind of experiences, good or bad. And in fact, we all know about Axelrod and his family's experiences with the bipedal wolf. It was written about in the Skinwalkers of the Pentagon book. And that Skinwalkers of the Pentagon book, which was actually approved by the Defense Intelligence Agency as being unclassified, is just full of experiences in there, including orbs of all colors, orange and blue. And apparently blue is not a good orb to be encountering. And also they had encounters with triangles. And so right there, I mean, if that's in plain black and white, that a book written by a DIA officer was about experiences related to Skinwalker Ranch. So leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great to hear, John. I'm glad that some of my fears are allayed there, and that the fact that there's a SharePoint up on a secret network that they can share their experiences, that is brilliant. That's a huge step, and we do have 2 Bigfoot experiencers here. Julianne, I believe Linda also has had one, and there's a lot of orbs from people that I've heard a number of people, dozens of people out in the woods that have experienced orbs when they're out there camping out for Bigfoot. So I'm not sure the connection, but Anjali, please, would you take that question, Deb's question about the IC community and experiencers?
Well, I know I'm going to sound like a broken record with this, but I think it's highly important that as soon as possible that the IC community stands up a division that is devoted to understanding the types of contact that are occurring with individuals, what those beings are saying, and we need to be looking for patterns. We need to be assessing intentions, and try to predict what they're going to be doing in the future. Everything that the IC community is supposed to do, we need to do. We need to do that with respect to these other life forms that are interacting with human beings very heavily in the IC community. And so for me as a former member, although it never really feels like you're former, I mean, it's kind of like just a lifelong way of understanding and viewing the world. And there we have too many experiencers in the IC community for it not to be significant and purposeful. And if we aren't trying to answer the question of what that purpose is, then we cannot for a moment be claiming that we are practicing good homeland security. Okay. So just to bring it down to the basic level, the IC has a job to do, and they haven't done it. And it's not their fault. They haven't been given the permission, the resources, the funding, and the personnel, the actual personnel. And I see a way to rectify that, and I see a path forward for analyzing what is happening, and I think we can get pretty close, but we can't do it without experiencers, period. If we don't interview experiences in depth and start taking that information like it is, and treating it like it is human intelligence, then we are failing. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, and I don't think I can add much to what John and Anjali said, other than maybe to point out that there is, at least, it's reportedly there are agencies that went and interacted with Chris Bledsoe, and I'd like to believe that information that they gathered on multiple interactions with him probably didn't just get put into a mason jar, but that there is probably somewhere in the DOD somebody studying him, and I don't know that he's the only one. So I suspect that there may be, again, I don't know more than what John and Anjali know, but I suspect that there may be an office somewhere that is taking in that data from sources that they deem credible, and I think we all know at this panel here that there are many more credible experiencers beyond them. I'm going to throw my topic out there because we have about 11 minutes left, and see what you guys think of that one. And we'll take it to Nathan first and then go around the table. And as you guys can see, Hera, the Black Panther, has decided to make an appearance. Hello, Hera. And there we go. Now she's probably going to dig her claws into my back. All right, Hera. Let me see. Just bring up my notepad here. Okay. So, this question, I guess this question actually was for John and Anjali, but I'm just going to take it around the table to everybody. And do you think that a group of the phenomenon that comes into play, let's say that is 2027, do you think they will exercise a certain amount of control over humanity, thereby removing agency from humanity? What do you think, Nathan? Do you think that there is a group or groups that will decide to exercise some control over us as humans and remove some of our agency, maybe all? What's your thought?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think this sort of gets, to me at least, to the way in which our understanding of reality is actually kind of busted and broken. I don't know that they even think like that. I don't know that it really.
Right. I don't either.
Yeah. So I and I'm sure Anjali and John have more to say on this, but I think that to many of us it might look like that. Like I could see why we might have that impression, or as we speculate about it, that's something we would speculate that would happen. That's a very in a way, kind of almost an antiquated, anthropomorphic way of looking at this sort of, relationship. But based on what many have said, not just those here tonight, the kind of contact, the kind of communication, the kind of relationship is so radically different than what we are accustomed to, and in the world that we have constructed around ourselves. That in a way it's the definition of a paradigm shift, right? It's literally like breaking all of the things that we thought we understood and reframing that. And I think along those lines, just the last thing that I'll say related to the earlier conversation is that I hope what Anjali said is true, because at some level, I believe we all intuitively understand that this world that we operate in now isn't really the way it's supposed to be. That there's something broken about it, and I think we know this at a very fundamental level, and we will, in a way, kind of like welcome this revelatory moment, because it's like the reanimation of the human spirit, waking us from a slumber.
Interesting. Depending upon what their vision is and how it comports with what your vision might be, I mean, that's open to interpretation. Deb, do you think that the phenomena will exercise a certain amount of control? It might be positive,
Right.
and remove agency or not.
Well, I'll be honest. I sometimes have to pause and think about what we've seen previously in terms of behavior. And we have seen some use of humans as basically tools to an end. And I remember Dave Scott talking about the flying of a UFO, and there was an entity flying a UFO that no longer had a body, but the consciousness was still being used to fly the UFO. And the one thing that freaked me out of this whole topic was the idea of being used to fly a UFO, and basically as a tool or a battery. And other people have talked about that. So that is a concern that I have, that they may not think about it the way that we do. They might just think, well, of course you'd be willing and wanting to do this, right? Be a battery for us, right? So, I can't say, because I don't have that conversation with, a non-human intelligence. That's not a discussion that I've had, but that is a concern, that's just because, like Nathan said, they don't think like we do. It may look like we've lost agency in that sense.
Interesting. Great way to put it. Let's go to Julie and then Linda, please.
Wow, that just tripped me out. but maybe it's not just being a battery. Maybe it's an extension of life. Maybe you are being installed in that craft to live another existence. They may not think like we do, but maybe we aren't thinking like them either, and therefore we're wrong in that. I don't know. I don't think until we experience something like that can we actually judge it. But that's just me. I try to see the good in shit.
I mean, you can't think about something the way that a non-human intelligent, you can only think as a human. It's your limitation. They may not be able to think like us unless they've just, have understand so much about us that they've learned to be able to think like us, perhaps.
And maybe after you are a craft for a while and you're flying around seeing the universe, you go on to be something else, because I believe we're eternal, and maybe you're just going to go on to something else after that. I don't know if it's actually like being punished or used or whatever. It just may be a different existence. So, but that is kind of trippy, and I can see how it might scare people.
I mean, what Deb described was basically the headless horseman, right? They chopped that Hessian soldier. They chopped the head off. He's still able to operate the horse, right, Nathan?
Yeah.
He can still fly the craft. Linda, my friend, what do you think's going to happen, my friend? Are they going to maybe exercise some control over our destiny, or will take some of our agency, or not? What's your thoughts? You've communicated with a number of these intelligences. Or maybe just one over and over. I don't know.
I think if they take agency over keeping us safe from nuclear, keeping us safe from Putin, keeping us safe from various factors that can be good for us, that's great. We cannot supposed to understand any grand design or no grand design in multiple types of these. Okay, so I think they've been exercising an amount of agency from the very beginning on our planet with us not being aware of it. So I think they're just going to do what they plan to do.
So it'll be relatively transparent because at this point, no, I'm saying that because obviously, they shut down, Robert Salas's nukes, and whereas they turned on, Soviet nukes at that point and initiated a start sequence that they then interrupted. So, but to the largest swath of the population of the world, it's largely transparent, or they don't know it. Is that what you mean?
I think we're going to have more conscious. We're going to be all consciousness. I think it's going to be more consciously aware. So I don't know. It's up to them. We're getting to that point where we need more help quick.
Yeah. I mean, I think you and Nathan both are on that same line, and I agree with you, John. Yes, sir. And then Anjali.
Okay, here's a thought. It's already happened. That agency was imposed upon the planet a long time ago, when they established kingship and priesthood based on a patriarchal model, and we've been living with it ever since. And so I would say that it's not them that did it; it's us did it to ourselves by elevating them to a divinity that they themselves would admit they don't deserve. But we elevated them to a divinity, a male-based hierarchy of their divine presence. And we established, nation states based on kingship and a male aristocratic line establishing kingship and land ownership, and a priesthood of us worshiping them through a male type of lineage, whereas the natural order of things was to have a matriarchal society. And so I think they're here to undo what we did to ourselves. So I don't buy that they're going to come here and take away our agency. They're trying to give us back what we once had. And that's what I think is going to be a shift in our consciousness, is to actually know who we were, who we are, and what we can become. Because unless we know that, we cannot join them as a space-faring planet to explore the rest of the universe with them.
That's right.
And I just want to say, I wasn't suggesting that they were going to do that. I was just asking, do you think they'll do that? And so it's a question. It's not a declarative statement. So just to make sure that nobody thinks that I was suggesting that's what would happen. I don't know. But that's why you have on smart people like you guys, so we can ask. Anjali.
Okay. So I'm going to go back again and kind of tease the IC a little bit again. I guess roast them a little. I guess I'm doing more roasting than I'm doing anything. We turn again. I'm going to say that we need to stand up a division that is dedicated to discerning the difference between the non-human stakeholders that we have. We don't just have one group of beings that are present here on Earth, and we need to understand not only where we come from, but where they come from, how long they've been here, what their intentions are. We know that from a lot of experiencers that we've heard about the positive side of I'll call it the consciousness effect, right? Where we begin having conscious communication with them, and it transforms our lives. And we've had, some type of experience that we can probably anchor at different points throughout our lives that connect that feeling for us, right? So I can't remember exactly where I was going with that.
Well, basically, the question was, do you think that they're going to exercise some sort of control over humanity? That any of the intelligences that you've either interacted with or
Right.
heard about through the ones that you're reacting with,
Okay. Yeah.
would
Thank
they
you.
take? Yes.
So again, we're dealing with more than one thing here,
Mhm.
and I cannot stress that enough. There are there are intricacies to this that we need to take great care in examining and attempting to understand. Um, I I would say that the idea of agency removed was very perfectly addressed by Mr. Ramirez.
Mhm.
That was going to be one of the first things that I offered up, is that our agency was restricted a very long time ago. Um, and we need to understand why, and and begin to work within that framework with the other groups and beings who are here to better understand. Um, so will they come in and remove additional agency? I have no idea. Um, there are concerns that that humanity may respond in an aggressive way, and I think that that's okay to interfere, to keep us from having some kind of psychotic break where we decide we're going to, nuke the entire planet because we have something that we don't understand in the atmosphere, or on our lawns or whatever. So we're going to have to definitely, as a species, and I hope at some point as a global family, we have to begin to approach this. We are about to discover that all of the differences that we have on this planet are minutia. They're nothing. They're illusory. They keep us divided. They keep us from hampering our progress. They keep us from consciously transcending into the beings that we are capable of becoming, and who we already are. All of these things need to be addressed, and we haven't even started the conversation yet, honestly.
Right.
There might be a few back rooms somewhere where there are a group of powerful men, pardon me, who are having those private conversations and making those decisions for all of us. But the IC and the nation are ill prepared, and it's time to get to work.
Can I get an amen for my homegirl, Anjali?
Amen.
I love
Amen.
it. So all right, that is about all the time we have. What I wanted to throw out there is John or Linda or Anjali, would you like to promote? Anjali, you mentioned, we can start with you. You mentioned that you have a podcast coming up that you're going to be involved with or starting. Would you like to talk about that real quick? And we'll put it in the show notes as well.
Just very quickly, because it's not why I'm here, and I don't want you to misunderstand. Okay. The decision to have a podcast is just based on my need to be able to accurately communicate and present the information in a way that I think will be best reflective of what I have learned even over the last 2 years. And I'm not even the same woman who came out, in March of 2021 and came forward and said, "Hey guys, this is what I experienced, and I'm this changed woman." Well, I feel like, I can barely relate to her, I mean, it's just like my constant movement and growth is just, I'm really enjoying it. And I think that I want to share that. I want to share that with everyone. I want them to understand not only my experiences, but I want to share with them my analysis of of what is happening and who we may be communicating with, and the different stakeholders, and what those intentions may be. That doesn't mean I'm right just because I come up with something, right? I mean, a lot of, intelligence officers write a lot of reports, and they get sent right back to their desk to write them again, and they get sent back again, and they get sent back again. I mean, it can happen. I'm not claiming to be the be all or end all, but I do hope to be one of the first public voices coming from the intelligence community who tries to bring analysis and understanding, to humanity of what we may be experiencing in a way that's outside of our normal framework. So join me if that sounds interesting to you. And if it doesn't, then I wish you well.
I will be subscribing. I'll put it to you that way. So what's the name of it going to be?
Discerning.
Oh, I like it. I like it. John, would you like to have anything you'd like to promote? I know you're coming up with, I don't remember your next pod, but please promote anything you'd like.
I basically have two left. Interview with UAP Studies podcast on Saturday, and they'll post the links to it. And my final one would be Into the Weird. Weird spelled WYRDE with Holly Wood.
Holly.
Yeah, Holly. And and you had her on as well.
Yes.
And so that would be my last one. And stay tuned, because you won't see me until after disclosure. And then we'll have a very different conversation. All the conversations will change, so stay tuned. And thank you very much for hosting us. Yeah. Gracious host, everyone.
You got cabbie goodbyes yet, so just hang on. So I don't know if Julie knows how to do cabbie goodbyes, so go ahead, Jules.
I want to say thank you so much for coming and riding in the cab with us. It has been an enlightening show. Thanks to my cabbie comrades, because they let me on the panel and out of the chat. And it has been grand having a reunion with my sister Linda, since it's been so long since I've been on a show with her. And I just hope the best for both of you. I can't wait until after disclosure when you come back, John. I'm ready for that conversation, and I will definitely be subscribing, Anjali.
Thank you.
Linda, your cabbie goodbye.
It's great to see everybody. Thank you, and have a great day. Good night.
I appreciate you, Debs.
I wanted to say thank you to both of you for coming and speaking with us. I wish more people had that ability to come out and communicate what they know. I really appreciate that you guys are brave enough to do that immensely. Also, I wanted to say an extra thank you to John, who has agreed to let me do a recap of his previous interview on the Dojo for UAP Med, because he was talking about supporting experiencers. So we will be putting that out soon. Thank you so much.
All right, Debsy. Money.
Yeah, thank you guys. It's been a wonderful conversation, and I feel personally touched by what you shared, and buckle up, right?
Thank you, Money. And by the way, Hera's here. She's trying to get in the shot here. She's ready to just claw me to pieces. But yes, I want to say thank you to our guests of honor, John and Anjali. You guys are awesome, brother and sister. And just sharing your experience and with us, and allowing us to welcome you into the cab. It really was an honor to have you, John. It's great to be able to call you and speak with you on the phone about stuff when something comes up or I have a question. And I did get to speak with Anjali recently on the phone for the first time. That was pretty awesome. And thank you so much. I realize, John, you may be at for a while after these next two, and Anjali, you're starting your own pod, but just know that the cab is here. Anytime we would welcome you to come on and speak about things, because really, as usual, we still have questions that we didn't even get to answer in this forum, and that's just the way we like it, because that gives an opportunity for you guys to come back. So on behalf of Jules and Linda and Anjali, John, Debs, Nathan, and myself, this is DJ saying peace out. One love. We'll see you down the road, and we're always wondering what's up around the bend.